Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me today because I want to talk about something. I have some interesting things that I want to tell you about my past life. But this is a really good verse. You know how I'm always saying, walk the path where Jesus would be pleased with you? Well, in Proverbs 3:6, that's the third chapter, 6th verse. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. I'm going to tell you all this morning about when I was a young mother, living in New Albany, Indiana, my husband working all the time at a bakery, hardly ever there. But who stirred up all these memories of what I want to tell you today? It was our pastor, John Carmichael, Dr. John, preaching on something that was very important to me when I was a young mother. I got so discouraged because he was working all the time, and I just felt like I'll never get anything done. Life is disappointing. It's so boring raising these kids, and he's not here, and I missed him so much because he was working. Most of the time while he was home, he was sleeping because you have to get up and make donuts and pies. He was working at a bakery, and you have to start at 3 o'clock in the morning, so he has to sleep mainly during the day. Well, our pastor Wednesday night started speaking on you are what you think, and I was so down that I decided, and I had heard about Norman Vincent Peale, and he was a pastor, and he came from the Methodist, but I think he went into another, but how that he would encourage people. So I went to the library and started checking me some books out on how I could get a better, I was a Christian, but to get a better attitude toward life. So I read Norman Vincent Peale, and he says, whatever you tell yourself, and you talk to yourself, as Pastor John said, we're talking to ourselves all the time. And he just inspired me to remember what it was like when I was so bored as a young mother. I went to church. I had a good church. And I went to Sunday school. I have been to Sunday school about as many times as anybody in this world, because when we were on the evangelistic field, I was in Sunday school class every day before Buddy preached, and I enjoyed some of them. Some of them were so boring. Oh, brother. I would try to liven it up by asking some questions or doing something. Anyway, so Pastor John, bless his heart, he's just a wonderful man, him and his wife both. She's on YouTube too. She does talks on YouTube. Her name is Erica Carmichael. Anyway, he was saying, we are what we think we are. And I was thinking to myself, and of course Norman Vincent Peale says he started positive thinking. So I needed to do some positive thinking instead of thinking, you're so bored, you're so bored. So I started trying to get more interested in life. I worked at it. Until you work at it enough, it gets to be a habit. You learn how to do it. So I thought, what can I do that's different and have a positive attitude? So instead of sitting here, I decided when the kids would get home from after school, I'd have them something to eat, which always cheered them up because it seemed like they came home hungry, especially my son, Dennis, when we adopted him. For him, when he was growing, I would keep a pot of soup, beans, or spaghetti, or chili, or something, so he could eat right away, because he did not get enough lunch at school. And he learned how to cook. I taught him how to cook. So I started looking and doing better in my own mind. And I said, you know, I'm going to have a positive attitude about life. And I'm not going to be sitting here bored to tears. So I got me all the books I could find on living positive in my mind, thinking good thoughts. If you fill yourself with thoughts like, oh, I ain't no good, I can't get nothing done, you can get things done. So I started thinking, I'm going to take these kids for a walk and we'll go pick a bouquet. When I decided to do that, it was in the fall. All the flowers and everything was gone, but there was a lot of pretty weeds with seeds on them. So we would go walking down Silver Street and alongside the road, and we would pick a bouquet of weeds and put them in a vase and bring them home. And you know what? They looked pretty, and the kids enjoyed them. Or I would take them to the park. Their daddy would be sleeping a lot of times, and I would take them to the park with a pound of hot dogs, potato chips, a can of pork and beans, and plates, and we would have a picnic at the park. So I started doing positive things, and I started feeling a lot better. Now, when I learned all that, and of course, Pastor brought it all back to my mind Wednesday night when he was preaching. We stream him on Wednesdays, and because it's dark, and we're 83 and 91, James and I, and we don't like to drive in the dark anymore. I remember when Buddy and I was on the evangelistic field. You know how I talk about this and that and the other, but I'll come back to the other. So when we was on the evangelistic field, these lovely elderly couples would come to the morning service when Buddy would preach. And I'd say, see you tonight. And they would say, well, we would really like to be here, but we just can't drive in the dark anymore. And they couldn't. And James and I do not like to drive in the dark anymore. We see pretty good during the daytime, but we don't see real good at night. So we don't drive in the dark. And our church on Wednesday night, which is a nighttime service, don't close down. Sometimes fact is, I have been known to go to bed by the time he's winding down. That's because I'm tired. I'm 91 years old. So I go on to bed. If the service starts at 6, and I can last an hour, then after that, around 7 o'clock, 7:30, this sweet little old lady goes to bed. And when I look at myself, I can see myself in my iPad. And I am a sweet-looking little old grandma. I never have a grandma that looked that sweet. My grandma Ayers, she wore a bonnet, and I thought it was so beautiful that she would wear. That's my hanky. She would, and I always wanted one. I never did get one to keep the sun out of her eyes. Anyway, John was preaching about self-thinking. And so when I studied all those books, because I checked out every book on positive attitude from the library and read them all. And I looked on iPad this morning and asked Google about those books that Norman Vincent Peale wrote. And you can get the original ones, but it'll run you around $180, $200. Probably still get them at the library, though, or someplace, or read them maybe, I don't know, online. But think positive is what I learned from that. Fill your mind with good things. Do not dwell on the negative. If it's there, and it is, then's when you just make the best of it. You look at both sides. And of course, it's always said that even behind the clouds, there's a silver lining somewhere. So, and my mom always said, look on the bright side. Now, that's what she'd say. Look on the bright side. She did say that a lot. And when I read all those books about looking on a positive side and filling your mind with positive thoughts, when I decided to go to California, that was the way I was at that time. I wasn't that bored. I was young. I was ambitious. I wanted to do things. I wanted to amount to something. And I didn't amount to a hill of beans, really. But I did have a positive attitude most of the time when I was younger, because my mommy and daddy spoiled me. My elder brother passed away when he was around 2. And when I came along, then I was the little princess. And I thought I was it. So I had a real positive attitude as a younger person. And when I was in school and I won being queen for a day by popular vote, I expected it. But it all went away when I became a mother. seemed like all my positivity went down the drains. It was the phase of life that I was going through. So I had to renew, recharge. Sometimes we have to recharge. After Buddy went away, my positive attitude went down the tubes. But I said, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to walk the mall. I'm going to be friendly with people. And I'm going to do the best I can to be a friend to people and whoever I meet. And I went to church. But the thing of it is, after Buddy went away, I had a hard time going to church. But I went anyway. We have to do some things anyway when we don't feel like it. And then after my second husband went in the nursing home and finally died after a couple of 3 years, I would go to the church. Floyd and I, my second husband, went to the same beautiful church, Graceland Baptist, for 10 years. Wonderful pastors, encouraging preaching, just enjoyed that church so much. And then when Floyd went away, I took it hard. I really took it very hard. I was grieving, and I would go to church out at Graceland Baptist, which is still a wonderful big church. I hear they have a wonderful pastor there now, but we go to Evangel North with James, and that was his home church, and that's where I changed and started going after Floyd went away because I was so down in the dumps. My positive attitude had went down the tubes again. So what do? You work on it, and that's what I did. I said, well, I'm going to change churches, because I would go and I would sit up in the balcony. They have a balcony. And when the music started, tears would start running down my face. I was grieving so bad. I was so lonely. I mean, you think, oh, the Lord's going to be my answer. The Lord helps us and we stay alive, but we still get down in the dumps sometimes. And I was down there bad, so I changed churches. And my sister and her husband started going. My nephew was going to this Evangel North church. Now, Pastor John was not the pastor there, but they had a good pastor. And that pastor was really preaching some good sermons that helped me a lot. That's another good reason to go to church or listen to good sermons on the television. YouTube has got some really super preachers on it, and you can find them if you look for them. I could tell you a few, but you can find them on your own. And I don't have time to watch them. I'm too busy watching some of my friends who encouraged me a lot. You know, like Granny Pat, chit-chat with Granny Pat and Mrs. Peach, and all around Grandma, and 967 Andy. I have got so many more friends that I didn't have before, and it's enjoyable to know those. And all of y'all that make comments, I do read them. Now, it's getting to be a lot, and I don't know. If I put a heart, then I read it, but I don't always personally answer every one. But I do the best I can. That's all we can do, the best we can. And that's what we do. So anyway, the pastor there at Evangel North was a pastor that preached a lot on the favor of God. And as I thought of it back then, I realized that in my life, I have had the favor of God many times. If we're faithful, we get the favor of God. We really do. And I tell you what, children, if you do something for others and help others, and I've always tried to be a helper when I can. You can't always, because I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. But there's other things you can do. So find where you can be a help to someone. And of course, that's where I met James. But my husband was in a nursing home, and his wife was very, very ill and in the hospital a lot. She was very ill. So, but we were friends, and I never dreamed I would marry James Blair, and that's his name, and it's not a secret. But he's a wonderful man, and we've been married 15 years now, going on 16. I remember meeting a lady at the Walmart one day, and I was talking to her, and I said, are you a widow? And she said, yes, I'm a widow. She says, and it's so lonely, and it is. It's a tough life at times. But see, some of my friends are making the best of it, like Mrs. Peach. She's a widow lady, and they're living alone, and they are making the best of it. They are looking on the bright side, as my mom says. But she said, yes, I've been married 3 times, and my last husband only lasted 10 years. And we had a happy time, but he's gone now, and I'm making the best of it. That's what she was doing. It's a choice. Think on whatsoever things are lovely and good. If there be any profit, think on those things. Don't fill your mind with, look, I can't do nothing. You can do something. You can get a hobby. You can go walking. You can look out the window and watch the squirrels. That's what me and James do a lot of. And we like our cats. Those that can have a cat or a dog or a pet, I don't recommend snakes. I've got a granddaughter, I think, that's got a snake. I don't want to get near it. I think Leandra's got a snake. I don't want to. I saw it on Facebook or somewhere that she has a snake. But I don't want nothing like that. And some people like rats. They have a pet rat. But get you a kitty cat. 2 is better than 1 because they play together. And if you get like sisters or brothers, then they're always happy with each other. This morning, I got up early and did a little thing saying that I'm going to tell about, thinking good thoughts, being positive in your attitude in life, and whatever you say to yourself, because we all talk to ourselves. If you look in the mirror and say, I don't look good, that's not good. That's why I try to look good. I've walked with a man up at the mall and he's gone now out of my life because we quit walking, but he said, I've got a coffee cup at home that says cuss word, but I'm good. He kept a positive attitude, and he was alone, but we were just friends. I was friends with a lot of people. It was good to get out and go walking at the mall and chat with people. You don't want to bring them home with you, particularly, but you're getting out and you're sharing ideas. Get involved with a club, get involved with something. People say, well, I'm not outgoing. Well, who makes you not outgoing? That's your choice. You can be outgoing if you want to. I have always been naturally outgoing, but I know you can work at it because sometimes I don't even want to be in a crowd, really. I am a loner quite a bit, a lot of the time. And I enjoy reading, watching some TV, and I enjoy my iPad immensely because it's just like my little TV I carry everywhere with me. It's my company. And a lot of people live with their phone. What is strange is I had to go to the doctor recently and get my shoulder checked out, which it was fine. The Lord healed it. It's great. And don't you know, there was people sitting there and they all had their phones out going on their phones. And then this one girl said she was on TikTok. So we went live on TikTok. Now I haven't done that anymore. But we just had fun chatting. And I have in the past, after my Norman Vincent Peale reading and checking up on it, I went to the dentist one time and there was about 20 people sitting there because it's a place where they was making false teeth and I was getting a partial made. Well, I tried wearing a partial and it didn't work. So what I did was I got me some teeth put in, a couple that will stay there. So I threw that partial away and I eat with what teeth I have left. But there was about 20 people sitting there waiting to get their partials and false teeth. One of those places that's cheap. I didn't have that much money back then, been a few years ago. And I would say, how y'all today? And I would just start a conversation with them all. And it would be an enjoyable time. There's a lot of people that are willing to be friends and be friendly, and I enjoyed. I don't remember any of them from Adam, but it helped fill the time we didn't have the low cell phones that we were sitting there looking at. A lot of times I would take a book in places like that and just sit and read my book, but I decided to just talk to everybody. So I am kind of outgoing naturally, but I have been through some times in my life that was not positive, where the Lord just held my hand and I just suffered through. And that's what we have to do sometimes. There's a lot of widows and widowers out there that are lonely and don't have friends. But if you can get out, go. And if you can, I tell you what about getting a cat. You don't have to walk them. And you can have it, if you're well to do enough, to feed them and keep a kitty litter box. And there is some really good litter out there anymore that I can recommend if you got a cat. But anyhow, they are so much company. When I got up this morning and came back to bed, I was going to tell you this earlier. So I get up sometimes and I stay an hour and maybe make a little video with the cats or something, or myself. Who knows? I don't know what I'm going to do next. That's why I make these videos now. And I can't remember what I talked about because it's just I'm visiting with you. I mean, who remembers what all they talk about when they're just visiting with you? You don't remember all that stuff. I would have to look. I'd have to watch this again to remember, except I do remember that I'm trying to get you to look on the positive and talk to yourself with a positive voice and say, you know, you look pretty good. That's what got me started on YouTube. I said, you don't look too bad to be 90. And I didn't look bad that morning, and I looked back at that video, and it's still on YouTube. I have improved a lot since then because I started working on my wigs better and trying to dress up a little more and look nice when I'm talking to y'all and visiting with you, because I'm company to a lot of you and you're company to me. So we're visiting. So we try to look on the bright side and on the positive side. And that sermon that John told me, Pastor John told me, I call him John because I'm, you know, he's a lot younger than me and we've known each other a long time. And we was at a dinner and I was sitting there at the table and Pastor came up to my shoulder. He said, I want your autograph. I said, what? He said, yeah, I want your autograph. You're famous, you know. You got all those subscribers on YouTube. I said, you don't watch my YouTube, do you? He said, I sure do. Well, well, he's on YouTube too. And, but we watch him when he's preaching. I don't go back and watch his other sermons. And he's got a bunch of them. But his one Wednesday night was uplifting. It was good because everybody's thinking something. You're always talking to yourself, he said, and that's true. I mean, we're all talking to ourselves at times. Do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? And I know what I want to do. I want to watch Hannity. I want to watch President Trump. I am a Republican. And I believe we should not hate each other just because we're Republican or Democrat. We're Christians. We love one another. And you're my friend. I mean, you get out of bed and with just like I do, go to the bathroom just like I do, you eat, you sleep just like I do. We're all humans. We need to be kind to one another. And I love all the Democrats. I mean, I don't hate any of them. I don't like some of the things anybody does at times, but that's life. We all have our opinions. We're different. So God bless all of y'all, and I love you. That's just the way I am. And the Lord helps me. And I thank him so much that I can talk to y'all. And I've got so many good friends out there that says they love me. And I love all of them. And sometimes I tell them I love them too. And I don't always remember to do it. We love one another. Jesus loved us all. Love ye one another. Yes. Amen. Maybe I've turned into a little old preacher. I don't know. And always be able to kind of laugh at yourself because, you know, we're all kind of strange sometimes. We just, you know, you can't change people always, but do try to have a positive outlook on life. Most of the time, the things that you're worrying about so bad never even happen. It never even happens. And I have done that in the past, and it didn't happen. So The Bible says, be anxious for nothing and let it all rest in God's hands. Don't worry about stuff. Cast all your care upon him, for he careth for you. Isn't that a good thing to close down on? And that's scripture. So God bless you. I've went longer than I really intended to. That's life. And I say that a lot. That's life. Life is different. You never know what's going to happen next. And what am I going to do today? I am making another 7-layer salad. The chili turned out good, but you know what? It was a little too hot for James. I decided, well, this is going to go longer than I thought, and none of you will watch it all the way through probably, but that's life. I don't care. I'm having fun. So I made this chili, and I had bought some and put in the drawer that, you know, the package you can put in with your hamburger and your tomatoes and stuff. And it said, this is hot chili. Well, I made it, and James said, we ate it for lunch yesterday, and then we was going to have it again for supper. And he said to me, is there any way you can take the fire out of that a little? Now, if you're a cook, you do know how to take the fire out of something that you've cooked, or at least I do. I said, yeah, I can fix that. He said, how? I said, well, I'm going to bake a couple of potatoes in the microwave, and I'm going to chop them up, and I'm going to cook them. I'm going to cook them with the chili that's too hot. And I had also some cabbage that was left over. So I took that cabbage and that potatoes, and I made chili stew. We had it for supper. He said, this is pretty good. And it was. I have never made chili stew before in my life, but I know you can make things not so hot with potatoes, you know, or make them. If you get something too salty, like soup beans or something, if you accidentally put too much salt in it, put your couple of potatoes in the microwave, chop up that potato and cook it with your beans, and it'll get salt out and it'll be edible. I've done that before. So I know a few things. And probably you didn't know this, or you probably did. I bet Billy Jean, just me, Billy Jean knows all that stuff. He sure does some good cooking. Love you, Billy. Since I've met him and his mama, I've got more friends. I'm going to let you go. Walk that walk now where Jesus would be pleased with you. Bye-bye.